To the Make Your Own Luck with Data-Driven Marketing webinar brought to you by Phrasee and MessageGears. Now, I am not sure why any of us would actually need more luck when the past couple of years have been so exceedingly lucky for everyone, but we will give it a try nonetheless. My name is Andrea Bridges-Smith, and I'm the CEO of San Phoenix, and I am going to be your host for the moment. But I have some amazing guests here with me that I'm going to introduce in just a bit. But first, we have to do the obligatory how do we webinar instructions, so bear with me for that. Okay, at the bottom right, you can hit the chat button to chat with your fellow attendees, and there is a questions button to ask questions to us. Please try to keep the questions relevant to the webinar, but I will go ahead and answer the ones that I know are on all of your minds. Peacocks, fondue, aquamarine, and the 1978 Lakers. Okay, I think we've cleared up all the important stuff. One more thing, yes, this will be recorded and sent out afterwards. So, we can all relax about that. Okay, so the way today is going to work is I'm going to set the stage for you a little bit about where we're at, and then we're going to have a little fireside chat here with our guests. So please feel free to chime in with questions along the way. And there are also going to be some polls. Ooh, very exciting. We all love a poll. So please get that voting finger ready. We do recommend the index finger. It's really a classic choice for clicking on things. Okay, so let's talk to our lovely panel that we have here. They are coming to us from far and wide across the internet. First up, we have the lovely and talented Miss Elisa Stewart from Party City. Elisa is here because she has been through some things, folks, and she's going to tell you how to do those same things, but maybe do it a little bit easier than she had it now that she's got a little hindsight. So, Elisa, welcome.
Thank you, Andrea. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. Next up is Leah Vainberger from Phrasee, who is here because she works with a lot of retail brands who have the same kind of challenges that Elisa and you all have probably faced. And she's in charge of getting people out of those sticky situations. So we borrowed her to do the same thing here. So welcome, Leah.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Super excited for today. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you as well. And last but not least, we have Dave Smith from MessageGears. So Dave also helps a lot of brands like Party City and others in the retail space. And if you want to know your way around a tech stack, this is the guy that you call. Okay, he knows his way around some MarTech. So he's a terrific problem solver, and he's going to help us do a little solving today. So welcome, Dave.
Thanks very much, Andrea. Happy to be here.
Good to have you here. So before we dive into our discussion with these lovely folks here, who I'm so glad to have, let's step back a bit. Let's set the stage, okay? Can we dim the lights for some dramatic effect? No, you cannot do that in a webinar, as it turns out. Okay, we'll just go with it. So let's talk about the retail landscape over the past couple years. It's been, you may have noticed, a little weird. No one is sure why. Real head scratcher. No, obviously it's because a global pandemic came along and just made everything super weird, right? These kind of waves of COVID are traveling around the globe, and it's leading to these like weird peaks and valleys of demand. You may recall not so long ago when everyone needed KN95 masks all at once, and then there weren't any. And then the supply chain caught up about 2 weeks later, and they were like, there's plenty of masks. And it was like, okay, now everybody can take their masks off. That was a fun time. Wasn't stressful at all. And then, what if you wanted to, to use an example from Elisa's world, what if you wanted to have like a gender reveal party, one that hopefully would not hurt anybody. If you were in Bozeman, Montana, that week, sure, go ahead, have the party. If you were in Chicago, you're trapped in your house, you're not advised to be within 10 feet of other humans. And then 2 weeks later, it switches. And then 2 weeks after that, I mean, who knows, So for brands, what this meant is that idea of geo-targeting really became a lot more important than before. But let's take that a step further, okay? You're targeting by city or state, that's nice. But let me tell you a story that kind of illustrates why even that kind of doesn't go far enough. So I have 2 kids. They're adorable. Thanks for asking. And we have a family that lives not too far from us, about 2 miles. We've been friends with them forever, and they have kids the same age as ours. And on paper, we're very similar, same ages. Our kids are the same ages. They go to similar schools. We have, similar interests and political leanings and all that. But during the pandemic, the way that they handled things was very different from the way that we handled things. We were like very cautious and very careful because that's what made sense for us. Them, less so, more willing to kind of do some things. So, when I'm thinking about from a brand point of view, somebody who wanted to target both of our households, targeting just like our city or our state wouldn't have been enough to make that message effective, given how differently we felt about things. And so the point here that I'm trying to make is that if the pandemic has done one thing for us, it has really thrown into stark relief how individual everyone is. And everybody's got their own, comfort levels and risk profiles and preferences. And what that means for you is, that one-to-one personalization initiative that you've been meaning to get to it for the past 5 years, but it just sort of keeps getting pushed back. That is no longer a nice to have. Like, you have got to do that, and you've got to do it now. And I know that that may sound like scary and stressful, but I invite you to be excited about that instead, because your customers have never been a monolith, but now they're really, really, really not. And so the time has come to catch up to that reality and to start marketing in a whole new way. And I'm going to talk to all of these guys about how you actually get there. But I hope if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's that it is time to pack your bag and go on that one-to-one personalization journey, baby. And it's going to be so fun when you get there. Okay. All right. So I want to start out by talking to Elisa. She is on that one-to-one personalization journey at Party City and is totally crushing it. So Elisa, can you tell us about how you kind of laid the groundwork for that bon voyage?
Sure. So, first, I think I kind of want to dispel a little bit of a myth. I don't think you'll ever be able to have a unique, customized experience for every single customer that you would consider active, and nor do I think you would want to, because I think different customers have bring a different value. And so, we have a probably active database of around 10 million people. And I would say that around 9% of those drive 30% of our revenue. So from an investment standpoint, I think that initially your thought is, okay, how do I take this huge database and call that down to the people who are actually driving value for the organization? So that being said, for me, data is the king of everything. And I think we have spent the past year organizing our customer data and really understanding who our key segments are, our transactional segments, as well as our demographic profiles, and then the associated cohorts from that, so that we could be more targeted, but not necessarily achieve the brass ring of a special and unique strategy for each customer.
Gotcha. And, I think that's smart. I think as you're starting on that personalization journey, if you start with segmentation and then kind of work in from there to get, more personal with the people who matter the most, I think that's a really smart way to actually go about it. So I know that you embarked on this like data cleanup operation,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds like it was
Very
a
well
rocky good time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we maybe had some Pinot Grigio along the way.
To say the least.
Yes. And how hard was it to clean up all that data?
Um, I mean, it's challenging. I mean, I would say that you know, your priority isn't necessarily the priority for the entire organization. And so
Mm,
one of the key uh, resources that we needed to rely on was our IT team, and they were being pulled in a lot of different directions. So I would say the biggest challenge was to figure out how to coordinate efforts with our stakeholders and actually get the data into the warehouse. And then once the data was in the warehouse, we worked with this amazing third party called Acadia, and they actually went in and developed our customer schema and all of the associating segmentations and profiling from there.
gotcha. Okay. So I promised you polls, people, and now it's poll time. Okay. Do you have that, that clicking finger ready? If everybody can go over to the right of your screen and then head south and click on that poll button at the bottom. I'm curious to know, how is your data situation right now? So we've got a few options here. It's a Wes Craven film. It's terrifying. Don't be ashamed if you're in that boat. You're not alone. It's a Wes Anderson film, maybe a little quirky, but serviceable. We're working with it. We're making decisions. Or it's Marie Kondo's Stock Drawer, a monument to organized serenity. Uh, that one's more rare, but let's let the people vote. Let's see what they come up with. So let's submit your vote, and I'm going to vote too, so I can see the results. Oh, okay, we're getting a lot of Wes Anderson film. Okay, that's good. Okay, there's some quirks in the data, but we're serviceable. Okay, so sounds like a lot of you are doing a good job keeping that data relatively clean. I applaud you for that, because now you get to skip the fun that Elisa has recently been having. And she also changed ESPs at the same time. That's
Oh, yes. All
that.
kinds of fun at Party City.
Yeah, yeah. Just a very different kind of party, less feather boas. So, Dave, I'm gonna move things over to you. I feel like marketers have been chasing this dream of one-to-one personalization with customers for years. Why is it hard?
Data. Back to data. Getting the data in a way that is not only accessible but is also that everyone understands what it means. Like Elisa was mentioning, you got a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Everybody's got different designs on what that data may or may not mean. But making sure that you got a clear understanding of that as a foundation to work from is really the biggest part. I would start with understanding that data, and then being able to pull in various different aspects of those customer profiles to be able to see what might be moving the needle for you as you're testing different messages.
Yeah, you've really got to start with that solid foundation. So I'm glad to see so many people feel good about their foundation. Leah, you work for a company that processes a huge treasure trove of data every day. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, firstly, I can't take any credit for that whatsoever. But yeah, you're totally right. So, of course, dealing with such huge amounts of data is just incredibly, incredibly challenging, as we all know. And if you think about that coupled with all of the hundreds of other priorities that we have as marketers, it becomes even more challenging, right? And I think that's really, what potentially stops people from progressing towards that personalization story is having those challenges. So if there's anything you can lean into from a technology perspective, if I think about Phrasee's AI, that kind of does the heavy lifting in a lot of ways, right? And it just really is enabling marketers to, make meaningful decisions about their data without having to do all the heavy lifting as well, which I think is pretty awesome, really.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the idea of bringing in AI,
Right.
and I remember when it was my last job. We had this guy named Nico, and love Nico. Nico's whole entire job is he was an analyst, and we would ask him a question that would involve analyzing a whole bunch of data about our customers. And then Nico would go away for a few days and do I don't know what he was doing. He could have been doing pivot tables. He could have had a little cauldron with like some eye of newt sprinkling. I don't know what he did, but he would come back and then he would have an answer for you. And you'd look at it and you'd go, that's so cool. And it would spark like 3 more questions. And you'd be like, can you answer these now? And Nico would go back to wherever he was and do the thing again. It was, just so labor intensive. And we could have used like 400 more of him, at all times. So yeah, AI seems like the only way that you're going to get, to be able to scale the way that you need to. So Elisa, you're using a lot of MarTech. You've got MessageGears, you've got Phrasee, you've got the Snowflake database. How are you making it all kind of sing together in harmony?
Well, I don't think we would be winning any singing competitions right now. But I think the biggest challenge for us right now is a couple things. So we have this great resource, this data warehouse, and I think that the next step for us is to find a senior leader champion, work with that champion, and then think about how we want to get all data streams into the warehouse in an organized way, and then to apply data strategies and governance so that everyone is kind of, to your point, singing from the same hymnal in harmony in terms of what data is available and what it all means. So that's number one. And then the other thing for us, my team that heads CRM, is how can we get more out of our customer data? And I think right now our biggest challenge is identity and identity resolution. And you can have the best CDP, CRM, MDM, all of the acronyms, but if the underlying data is not, if you're not able to connect it, it's still meaningless. So I think that is probably second on our list in terms of challenges that we need to overcome.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, you said something interesting in there that I want to go back to, and Dave and Leah, feel free to chime in on this as well if you've got opinions. But, you mentioned the word champion and finding a champion that can kind of, talk the higher ups into, moving forward on the initiatives that are important to you. So if you've got a management team that's leery of trying new things or spending large sums of money on things like, cleaning up your data or testing out some advanced segmentation and one-to-one personalization things, how do you frame that in a way that kind of turns on the light bulb for them to where they open up the purse strings?
One example that pops to mind is really just focusing on the people cost. Being able to say, from a data perspective, we're spending 1, 2, 3 or more FTE on a given week just to make sure that the data is available for us to be able to market accurately, for example. Could be a million of those different examples, but the actual people cost, we've had other examples where clients are spending a whole day doing nothing but transferring files. They have one person that does nothing but transfer files. If you could eliminate that, the savings is very real and certainly helps break through some of the barriers. From a technical perspective, you don't necessarily want to talk to the higher ups about it, and being able to talk to it from a resource perspective has been really helpful.
So if you say the words "we're hemorrhaging money," then that
that's to get their attention.
That'll do it.
Hemorrhaging money. I'm going to write that one down. That's useful. Elisa, what about you? You had to kind of, do this in real life and make the case. Was there anything that kind of helped you turn on that light bulb for them?
Well, I think all senior leaders understand the value of data. They understand that there's all kinds of treasure and golden nuggets hidden within the data that will accelerate the business and help them achieve all of their key KPIs faster. But data is very dirty, and it's it's a beast to wrangle. And so honestly, what I would say is that it's an ebb and flow. So I think that we were able to find a great champion, senior leader for the data strategy and the data governance. But sometimes, you're just going to have to understand that other business challenges will rear their ugly head and take precedence. So we started off the year with Omicron. Omicron had devastating impacts on our sales, and then we're also dealing with supply chain. And so I
Right.
wouldn't say that right now championing data strategy and data governance is number one. But you want to keep continuing to have those conversations, keep continuing to have it top of mind, and eventually you will get there. So I think that the key takeaway that I have for everyone is that this isn't going to be a 1 year thing. This is going to be something where you're going to need to have some kind of roadmap and understanding that you're looking probably at anywhere from 3 to 5 years to fully get to a place where you have an holistic, actionable data set across the enterprise.
Gotcha. Okay. So I want to ask you, now that all this data is getting sorted out, you're getting that out of the way. That means that the possibilities have opened up. So what kinds of things is that enabling you to do now that you've got the data kind of sorted?
So I think it is allowing us to get closer to that sort of golden vision um, of deep personalization and relevance in our communications and targeting strategies. So we were able to identify 7 key transactional or behavioral segments and 6 key profiles, and then we are now in the process of integrating that segmentation and those profiles into other areas. So working with our digital media partners and ingesting those profiles so that they can do lookalike modeling and target and go out and find key profile groups that are working well for Party City. We're able to understand their purchase behavior and their seasonality and what they are, when and what they are coming to Party City for, and what that means for us in terms of how we set up our messaging and content strategies. So lots of really great wins. We're partnering with Phrasee with additional data models so that we can target 2 of our key profile groups, so high income families and then moderate to low income families. And then we're working with all of our personalization partners in terms of how do we dynamically include content that would be relevant for the specific taste and needs of those profiles.
Gotcha. Okay. See, this is the stuff that's exciting. Like the data stuff, I know it's like, oh, it's, like you said, it's a beast, right? But then once you get that done, like you get to do fun stuff, like identify high value segments. Oh, that's exciting. Maybe not to everyone, but I'm jazzed right now. So. Leah's excited. She's excited about it. So Elisa, I want to talk to you about a specific test that you guys ran. So everybody knows, you send an email, they click on the link, they buy something online. It's very easy to track, how well the click of that button did. But what's a little bit trickier to correlate is in-store sales. And I know you guys do a lot of in-store sales. So I know you guys did a test where you were testing to see if your email was actually correlating to an increase in foot traffic. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So I would say just over 85% of our sales are still generated by our brick and mortar locations. And so we have quarterly reviews with the Phrasee team. And we were seeing great results in terms of our digital performance, but we wanted to understand how how the Phrasee optimized subject lines translated into in-store sales. And so we worked with the Phrasee team and we were able to conduct a test where We had a holdout group, and just how you would set up a regular test. And then we did a match back with our transactional data to understand whether or not we saw lift of, relative to the holdout group. And we did. We saw a 4% increase in-store sales. And I want to say about overall, this was about $649,000 bottom line result for us.
That's awesome. And that was just from like one email campaign, right?
Yes.
So like once you do that to other email campaigns, it starts to grow and grow and grow. I know you've got this database of 10 million people. So, the more times you do it, cha-ching, right?
So I don't think it was one email. I think it was a period of time that we measured. I can't remember the exact time frame, but we did a period of time where we had the holdout group and then did the match back of transactions, and that was the result, was a 4% in-store sales lift.
Nice. Okay. So Leah, I'm going to go over to you for just a second. And I want to talk about, this idea of AI helping you get to one-to-one personalization. So can you talk about how that works a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the conversation around personalization has been going on for a long time, as we've already talked about today, right? And I think one of the key things to overcome as part of that challenge of getting to one-to-one personalization is really automating that whole process. And that, for us, is where the AI comes in, right? So Elisa was just talking about there of kind of testing and optimizing on the audiences that we're working with already, which is amazing. And of course, we've just talked about those fantastic results, right? But what we're really thinking about at Phrasee is how do we level up from that one step further, right? How do we get to the one-to-one personalization side of things? So I guess when we think about our audience and we kind of take that empathetic view of them wanting to be treated as individuals, amazing. That's exactly how we all want to be treated, right? But how do we turn that into science, and how do we use the information we know about those individuals in a way that's going to drive that kind of brand engagement and really kind of drive that commitment to the brand, right? Which is ultimately what we all want. So I think from our side of things, what we're really focusing on now is how we can get language across to individuals, which is going to resonate with them as an individual person. We know this about us as part of a group, but what do we know about us specifically that's really going to drive that kind of brand commitment home? So our use of AI in that way is just, well, blows my tiny mind, frankly. It's a really, really exciting thing. It's something that everybody wants to achieve, right? And if we can automate that process using AI, then, the more the better. Our side as well, I could talk about this for hours, Andrea, sorry. Just from an insights perspective, if there's anything we can do to help our customers, drive those insights, as Elisa was saying then, we learned a lot about the audiences for Party City. What else can we learn? So from our side of things, we're really trying to make sure that the insights that are being provided about those audiences are really meaningful for the customers we work with, so that it can be used in other areas of, the wider marketing strategies that our customers are assuming.
Yeah, and you said something really interesting there that that kind of sparked a thought for me. It was something I was reading the other day, and it said something to the effect of, listen, customers don't want you to just bombard them with discounts, and just be like 20% off, 50% off, 10% off, like all the time, like you can't pull that lever every time. And really, customer relationships now are, customers want something a little bit more real, for lack of a better term. They want something a little bit more profound. They want to feel valued and heard. And it's not just about, jamming that discount button over and over again and, hoping that sales come out the other end. I mean, after a while, that really starts to get stale. So you have to think about, that long-term relationship with the customers. I want to go back to poll land. We had so much fun with the first poll. I think we all really remember the fun times that we had with that. Let's go back. Let's do it again. Let's get that serotonin, really going. If everybody can head on over down to the polls tab. And I'm curious, listening to all of the rest of you out there, how close are you to achieving full one-to-one personalization? Are you laughing out loud because you're maybe not there yet? Are you headed in the right direction, and you have a plan, or have you arrived and you're using your data and it's, you're personalizing left and right. You're going beyond first name. Okay, you're using purchase history. So let's do a quick vote there, and I am gonna take a look at these results. Okay, so we have kind of an even split here. This is very interesting. Okay, so slight majority of you, you're not there yet. You are not alone. Don't feel bad about that. Don't feel bad about that. You are very much not alone, I can assure you. And then it's switching back and forth now. This is what's so exciting about a live poll, you guys. Up to the second coverage. Okay, so now we have kind of an even split of we're headed in that direction and we have a map, which is good. Okay, that's exciting. You're heading in the right direction, and I hope every single one of you pat yourself on the back for that. No one has arrived and located the nearest brunch spot. No one has reached one-to-one personalization utopia. Dave, do you want to chime in on this?
Sure. Well, as we were talking through this, a couple of things came to mind. It's like we've talked about, data a lot, and data is certainly that foundational piece, and the technology is catching up with modern data warehouses to where we can actually get all of that data into one place. And then we've talked about the challenge of distilling it and trying to make sense out of it. And now I think getting down to that one-to-one personalization is that test and learn. And how do we make things easier to test and learn? How do we make sure that the loop is closed so that as we're testing and learning, that we're bringing those insights back and learning from what our customers are telling us? Because at the end of the day, that's ultimately what we need to do with all this personalization is recognize the customers that are coming back to us and how much we know about them as they would expect us to, as they've been signing up for different preferences and newsletters and that sort of thing. So I think using AI to help automate some of this, to be able to get through a lot of that data that we can now collect, is a huge way to start that testing and learning process. And like I said, just making sure to look at that closed loop and continue to iterate over various hypotheses with different segments in your audience.
Yeah, so I want to ask you and Leah, since you guys talk to retail customers all day long about exactly this sort of thing. Elisa gave us a great example earlier of, that stat that really stuck out to me was that 9% of the customer base that's driving 30% of sales, and how valuable that is and how you can go and target that group. So do you guys have any examples from your customers? You don't have to name names. We can keep them anonymous and protect their identity. But can you think of any specific examples of things that your customers are doing with one-to-one personalization that you were like, now that's clever right there?
One thing that I can talk about it, just being able to enable more of a real-time connection with the data as that email goes out the door. So an example of where if inventory is something that you're worried about, you want to promote somebody abandoned browsed, and you want to follow up with them. Well, one of the things you don't want to do is follow up with them when that thing's out of stock. So being able to tie in real time to be able to read inventory data as the message is being generated before it goes out the door to try to limit those mistakes is something that is certainly helped. It adds credibility to just all those little check marks of the experiencing going well, which we of course don't hear about. We hear about all the bad ones. But as those little things of experience going well and building credibility as a brand and helping the customers feel like you do know them and that you are paying attention to what they're doing, not only in whatever channel you're communicating with, but also across the rest of the experiences that might have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm sure that no one here has had any supply chain issues at all.
None.
Right, Elisa? You guys are good on the supply chain?
Oh yeah, we're killing it.
Tremendous. Leah, what about you? Do you have any examples that you can think of customers doing cool stuff with one-to-one personalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our customers are doing amazing things. You just had all of the amazing stuff that Elisa and the team at Party City are doing. But if I really think about what our customers are focusing on now, it's that kind of really digging into personalization across every element of the programs that they're running. As Dave was saying then, there's no point optimizing over here if the rest of your program just isn't going to kind of follow through with that kind of same great experience, right? So if I think about one of our amazing customers, so Farfetch, so for those of you who don't know, they're a leading global platform for luxury fashion goods. They're amazing, fantastic team over there. So what they've been doing is to really hone into that brand language and that tone of voice, and to really dig into that to make sure that all of the language that's been generated from Phrasee is really, really targeted to exactly what they're trying to achieve. So we're doing that across their life cycle and trigger campaigns at the moment. So optimizing that brand language for those specific audiences across those specific communications. They've seen some crazy results. I think it's like a 30% open rate uplift in that space, which really just goes back to everything we've been talking about. I'm pretty sure I've said test and learn 55,000 times already, but I'll say it again. It's all about that, right? We're all about that. And that whole thing Dave was just talking about there, that the ethos of testing and learning, optimizing wherever you can, is really something that we see as driving huge success for our customers.
Yeah, and we're talking about data and we're talking about personalization, but you mentioned something really important, which is straight up cash, y'all. That's why you do it, because you get results. 30% increase in sales. Like that's nuts, right? Wouldn't we all love to just have that, especially now after the past weirdness of a couple years, which again, no one knows why it's been so weird. But yeah, I also what you said about testing and learning being so critical. I think this is a really good time to try things, because the old rules were already getting a little stale before all this happened, and now I feel like it's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, it's been shaken up and now you got to start drawing again. I mean, who knows what works these days, right? You got to test some things and try some things and, see what it does to those conversion rates. So yeah, I like that example a lot. Guys, we are nearing the end of our time together. So if there are any last minute questions that you want to ask our panel, please pop them in the questions tab right now. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question for you, Elisa. Do you recommend hiring someone else to clean up your data or trying to do it in-house?
Well, wow, that's a loaded question. So, well, a lot will go into that. And so the first thing is, I think you're going to have to do a readiness assessment with your internal organization. And by that, what I mean is, do you have the skill set? So do you have the proper data analysts that would be able to support that work and sort of have a history of being able to take large data sets and organize them in a way that's meaningful? And so if you don't have that in-house bench strength, then I would say you're definitely better served by finding someone that is 100% their wheelhouse. The other thing that you also have to be concerned with is, like I said earlier, is the changing priorities within organizations. And so will these be dedicated resources to you, or are they a shared resource? Because if they are a shared resource, then when other priorities come into play, then your work will suffer. So I think it all boils down to actually being able to take an honest assessment of your organization and its strengths and determining which one is best.
Gotcha. Okay. That is a very good, thoughtful answer. Well done. All right, guys. I think we are just about out of time here. So before I let everybody go, I want to say thank you so much to Elisa and to Dave and to Leah for being here today. This was wonderful. I hope everyone out there had a great time. I hope you are taking away a few things. Number one, clean up your data. Don't be scared. It's going to be fine. Maybe grab a bottle of wine on the way home. Number two, one-to-one personalization is not a nice to have anymore. It's a must have. Start on that journey. It sounds like a lot of you have already started. It sounds like a lot of you would like to, but maybe there's some things holding you back. Persistence, and remember Dave's tip about saying we're hemorrhaging money will help you get past those obstacles. And remember, the whole point of doing this is it's fun, exciting. I get excited about this stuff because I'm a dork like that. I know these guys do too. But, it's all about just making it rain dollar bills, y'all. That's, the payoff at the end of that journey. It's a big one, so it's worth taking the trip. So I want to thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thanks for
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.